us your time.
Thank you for having me.
So why does this matter? Why are people out here getting so in the rain to send a message?
Because we see our democracy is in real trouble. We see a president who has made himself a king and dictator. And we don't see an opposition that's powerful enough to stand up against the trampling of our rights and the trampling of the Constitution that's happening every single day with executive orders.
Mark Ruffalo has built a career out of smashing things on screen, but nothing compares to what happens when he turns his focus on Donald Trump. The Hulk may be his most famous character, but Trump never needed gamma rays to turn green. Envy has been his natural state for decades. Ruffalo doesn't just take jabs, he methodically tears down the image Trump desperately wants the world to believe, revealing instead a fragile, insecure man pretending to be a titan while living as a punchline.
We're here today to commemorate a life of an American that was killed by a Nazi on American soil. Let's say her name so Donald Trump can hear what's happened here. He's allowed these people. He's allowed fascism. He's allowed the KKK. He's allowed Nazis to show their ugly face. And we're here to remind them there's a cost for that.
The fun starts with Ruffalo drawing parallels between the Hulk's transformation and Trump's Twitter meltdowns. One is triggered by anger, the other by cable news ratings dipping below expectations. Ruffalo points out that at least the Hulk has an excuse: scientific accident, gamma rays, inner turmoil. Trump, on the other hand, explodes because someone spelled his name wrong on a chyron or a late-night comedian got a better laugh than he did. Imagine explaining to future historians that the leader of the free world once threw a fit because a cartoon character got higher Nielsen numbers. That's the presidential legacy Trump crafted. And Ruffalo isn't afraid to spotlight just how absurd it all looks.
What's it going to be like for people to experience this parade in D.C. tonight? What message is it sending to Americans to see their military used in this way?
It's a message that this president does not care about any of our founding fathers' principles. One of the reasons we separated the military from the executive branch was because we were leaving countries where dictators were using the military against the people.
And then there's the physique comparison. Ruffalo has spent years pretending to be a monster, transforming through special effects into a towering figure of brute strength. Trump, on the other hand, has spent years pretending to be 6 feet 3 inches and 215 pounds. One transformation convinces audiences worldwide. The other convinces nobody, except maybe the Trump Organization's doctor, who signs off on whatever number is handed to him on a sticky note. Ruffalo doesn't need CGI to prove his point. He just has to stand there, a Hollywood actor in his 50s who still looks younger than Trump, reminding everyone that the supposed paragon of vitality looks more like a wax figure slowly melting under the Mar-a-Lago sun.
Tossed into a dungeon, or a detention center, or a concentration camp, or some damn basement without a fair trial. We don't with that. Sadly, today Donald Trump and the administration of billionaires, crackpots, and ice brigades have taken over.
Ruffalo thrives in roles where vulnerability meets strength. That's why it's almost too easy for him to shred Trump's carefully built facade. Trump wants to be seen as powerful, unbreakable, a man who bends reality with his will. But what Ruffalo sees, and makes everyone else see, is a man terrified of being forgotten, clinging to relevance with the desperation of a washed-up actor who still introduces himself with his one big role from 30 years ago. Trump keeps recycling the same greatest hits: 2016 election, crooked Hillary, fake news, like an aging rock star who insists on playing the same song even though the crowd has moved on. Ruffalo makes it clear, the show is over, the audience has left, and Trump is still shouting into an empty arena.
They're pointing the guns in the wrong direction. It's not the immigrants who are taking anything. It's not that there isn't enough for everyone in this country. It's that there's a few very, 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 very wealthy, powerful people who are taking too much. It's the billionaires and it's the people in power that are taking from the American people, which is leaving us feeling desperate.
The true sting comes when Ruffalo highlights the gap between reality and Trump's self-image. Trump thinks he's Tony Stark, brilliant, untouchable, worshipped by millions. But the reality is closer to a side character in a comedy no one remembers. The guy who insists he was the star even though his scenes got cut in editing. Ruffalo has worked with Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, the real Avengers. Trump, by contrast, surrounds himself with sidekicks who couldn't land a role in a high school play. His cabinet meetings looked less like a team of world leaders and more like auditions for the world's most dysfunctional improved troupe.
And leaving our kids a world where they can breathe clean air and drink clean water. Kamala is the only choice. Dude, Trump wants to roll back the PFAS regulations you know what water is. Michigan knows what water is. You know how important it is. We got to protect that. Project 2025 wants to get rid of all the scientists and put his lackeys, his lick spittles, in all those political positions. We can't let him do that.
Ruffalo doesn't stop there. He zeroes in on Trump's obsession with loyalty, pointing out how every blockbuster film has villains who demand it. The tyrant who insists his henchmen clap louder, the warlord who punishes anyone who questions him, the wannabe king who believes praise makes him strong. Trump's presidency was basically a parody of that trope. Except instead of commanding armies, he commanded Twitter bots, sicked Fox hosts on cable news, and deployed a press secretary who had to lie about crowd sizes as if her job were a Saturday Night Live sketch gone off the rails. And Ruffalo, a lifelong activist, knows how to turn the mockery into a moral point, drawing attention to how Trump's politics thrive on theater but collapse under scrutiny.
Never done this before.
The blessing of these kinds of moments for any group of people is that it opens your eyes. It forces you out of your comfort zone. It makes you appreciate the things that we have, that we cherish, that we love. And those things are each other. Those things are our community. Those things are the people that make this incredible experiment in democracy work. That's what we get to earn from these terrible times. Trump is trying to take our freedoms away, so we have to be reminded of what those freedoms actually are.
The brilliance of Ruffalo's roast is how effortlessly it exposes Trump's contradictions. Here's a man who demands to be seen as rich but can't stop grifting with overpriced sneakers and tacky NFTs. Here's a man who brags about toughness but whines whenever anyone criticizes him. Here's a man who wants to be historic but will only be remembered as the president comedians couldn't stop mocking. Ruffalo doesn't raise his voice or Hulk smash a podium, he just lays bare the ridiculousness. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Even Trump's obsession with Hollywood gets skewered. He always wanted the glamour, the A-list treatment, the red carpets. Yet Hollywood laughed him out of the room decades ago. Here's the guy who tried to crash the party but ended up stuck at the kids' table. Ruffalo, meanwhile, embodies everything Trump wanted to be: respected actor, activist, beloved by peers, and the contrast is humiliating.
Are gathering here by the hundreds of thousands in locations of thousands around the USA and the world in the spirit of our founding fathers, and our brothers and sisters of the Boston Tea Party. The one thing that King Trump and his masked henchmen are making clearer and clearer every day, every law they break, every single day, is that we're going to have to be brave if we want to be free.
Ruffalo goes further, turning Trump's catchphrases into his undoing. The self-proclaimed dealmaker who oversaw bankruptcies like hobbies. The builder who built nothing but golf courses and debt. The patriot who dodged service yet wrapped himself in the flag like it was a Halloween costume. Every boast becomes a setup for a punchline. Every lie a foundation for a joke that lands harder because it's rooted in truth. Trump thinks repetition makes his claims powerful. Ruffalo shows it just makes them funny, like a bad actor repeating a line until it becomes parody. The master stroke comes when Ruffalo reframes Trump not as a political force, but as a failed performer, an applause junkie now starved of an audience.
When a U.S. senator is tackled in a press conference, representing his constituency with a question to the Homeland Security who has invaded that state with a military presence, you know you're heading for dictatorship. That's a turning point. You're only going to see more of that happen. This administration will continue to overreach, and this will be the response.
Trump is no longer the menacing figure his opponents once feared. He's a man shouting lines from a script that no one else is following, an actor who doesn't realize the movie ended years ago. The curtain's down, the lights are off, but Trump is still on stage, convinced the world is waiting. That's why Ruffalo's takedown is devastating. It strips Trump of the illusion of control, dominance, gravitas, and shows him as the one thing he can never accept: irrelevant. When a Hollywood star treats you not as a villain but as a punchline, the damage isn't just reputational, it's permanent. Trump wanted to be remembered as a titan of history. Instead, thanks to voices like Ruffalo, he'll be remembered as the president who turned politics into late-night comedy.
It's about a guy who's just a common man, and they ask him to reprint himself, to do these horrible jobs, to be killed over and over and over again.
So they're going to reprint the human over and over?
Yes, and then they kill him, and they reprint him, and they kill him, and they reprint him. And it's a space mission, so there's all kinds of dangerous things, so they keep killing him off to further this colonizing spaceship. And I play a petty dictator.
Mark Ruffalo's roast of Trump only gets sharper when you line up Trump's greatest hits of hypocrisy. Ruffalo doesn't need to invent material. He just highlights the contradictions and lets them collapse. One moment, Trump declares himself champion of the American worker. The next, he boasts about hiring cheap foreign labor for his resorts. He brands himself as the most successful businessman yet filed bankruptcy more times than some people apply for credit cards. Ruffalo draws attention to how Trump's self-made myth dissolves under scrutiny. The mogul image was built on smoke, mirrors, and lawyers stiffing contractors. Not exactly brilliance.
Even the worst person that's around, and there's plenty, they're here for us to learn something from them, you know? They got their place here. And so, as much as I might hate them and loathe them and despise them.
So there is a list of people
There's one,
that you despise.
there's one big one, but I...
Who?
Almost.
Because that would have been funny.
Donald Trump.
Then comes Trump's obsession with loyalty, a subject Ruffalo skewers with surgical precision. Trump treats loyalty like a one-way street. He expects worship but betrays anyone who challenges him. Cabinet members, campaign staff, allies, all tossed aside the moment they stop serving his ego. Ruffalo makes clear this reveals less a leader than a performer terrified of being upstaged. The comedy gold is Trump's endless self-promotion. He can't walk into a room without declaring it the biggest, the best, the most incredible thing anyone's ever seen. He brags about crowd sizes that don't exist, accomplishments that never happened, polls that evaporate. Ruffalo dismantles it, showing that Trump's speeches aren't presidential, they're late-night infomercials selling a product nobody wants.
Well, we're seeing what's happening. First of all, we're understanding that the immigrants aren't the criminals. If you look at the statistics, most of the crimes that are committed in this country are by white people, that non-immigrants, and they add to our economy by the billions. And so for every horrible thing that you have to go through in life, you get an equal gift in return. And the gift of this time is that we get to see who the true villains are. We get to see who's really making our lives unbearable and who's making us so desperate. It's not the immigrants, it's the billionaires.
The environmental hypocrisy is where Ruffalo shines brightest. A lifelong activist, he unloads on Trump's dismissive stance on climate change. While scientists present data, Trump waves it off with jokes about cold weather. Ruffalo frames it as dangerous theater, a man so obsessed with applause that he treats the planet's future as a prop. When Trump rolled back environmental protections for corporate donors, Ruffalo exposed it as negligence that will outlive him. The roast also hammers Trump's so-called brand. Once synonymous with wealth and glamour, it's now tied to chaos, lawsuits, and division. Trump Tower isn't aspiration, it's excess aged poorly. The gilded image that once sold condos now screams scandal. Ruffalo's punchline: Trump's brand is the only product in history that devalued itself every time its owner opened his mouth.